Judy, we're having some technical difficulties.
And how are you? Good evening. Okay. Are we ready? Are we live?
Yep.
We're live. Okay. So I'm going to call the Selectboard meeting of Tuesday, March 22nd to order. And first item is approval of the agenda. Seconded. There are a few updates. Item 4C is addition of Walgreens. Item 3B1, approval of state agreements for 2022 growing urban forests and caring for canopy grants is added, and item 5A, we will close the 100 project team members added. Is there any other amendments, deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda with the updates and additions? So noted here, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Good. Next is approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Is there anything anyone would like to highlight in here? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, citizens' comments. Are you all here for the airport stuff? So that's on our agenda.
No, not here. I didn't copy it out, but here for me. It's a discussion of the improvements to the town reservoir.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's on the.
Are there any hands up? I see hands up.
Go ahead, Judy.
Go ahead.
I just want to, I apologize, I just want to know that I'm in attendance.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I am.
Yes.
Okay, and Christie?
Yes, hi, Kathleen. Let me get my picture. I'm sorry, I have just a photograph. I don't see where I can
Right.
indicate
Yeah,
I'm live.
you can go ahead and.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My question is about the agenda, number 7. It may just be a matter of changing wording, but my understanding is that MANA is requesting the select board support for a letter to go to the governor regarding forming a citizens action committee or a CAC. It's a little bit different wording.
That's correct, and I think Ross will be presenting that, at least the letter was from Ross, so, or presented by Ross. Is there anything else?
So, and I think the upshot is that it is in order to talk about that under that item.
Thank you, Kathleen and Brian.
You're welcome. Are there any other hands?
Judy, are you all set? I'm gonna lower your hand.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda, request a sole source purchase of diffusers for the wastewater treatment facility. And Bob Wells is seeking our approval to purchase 100 Flexhorn diffuser Mag 200 assemblies from Aqua Aerobic Systems of Love Cross Park, Illinois, under the sole source purchases provision of the purchasing policy at a total cost of $22,292.08. Diffusers are needed, Bob says, in preparation for a project to take down one of the sequencing batch reactors at the wastewater facility in August for routine maintenance. Each SBR, sequencing batch reactor, has 200 installed diffusers that gradually plug over time and need to be replaced. Bob has about 60 new diffusers on hand and is planning to spread out the purchase of the remaining units needed for the project between the current and next fiscal year. The quoted lead time for delivery from the supplier is now 16 to 20 weeks versus the normal approximately 2 weeks. Bob notes that the purchase will cause an overrun in his budget of about $10,000. However, he is anticipating an offsetting surplus in industrial discharge revenue in FY22 of about $120,000. Questions of the board?
So just to make sure I understand, and it looks like from the proposal, he's ordering 160 at one time rather than 80 and 80, correct? Is that what you understand?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand. Okay.
I was just curious what's changed between budgeting and now that he's expecting an extra $120,000 of industrial discharge revenue.
Sorry?
He says he's anticipating offsetting surplus of $120,000 of industrial discharge revenue in this budget year. And I was just wondering what had changed and why he expects that.
Is that the rate for cabin? Or what is that?
That may be part of it, though that just went into effect, January 1. So we may not be seeing the full impact of that. I can ask Bob, for his, detailed explanation.
Wasn't there something attached?
We did, have an attachment showing, the revenues for each.
There is.
I didn't really, I kind of saw it was there, I didn't really pay that much attention to it because I didn't question it, but,
Yeah, in fact, I did not see that was correct.
so I'm assuming that the numbers in red are actual.
Yep.
And so he must be just over what he had originally budgeted. He doesn't show what the actual budgeted amounts are, but he just must be over what was originally budgeted.
Gotcha. Thanks.
I don't get it.
Yep.
Oh, it says budget at the bottom.
Right. And there's the
Got it.
Yeah. 150 between those. Excellent.
So I'm assuming based on the fact that there's 200 diffusers in there and he's only buying 160, that he doesn't anticipate that he has to replace all of them.
Well, he has 60 on here.
Oh, right. Yeah, but he was originally planning on only buying 80 and 80 when he does that.
No routine.
Oh, but it would have been done in July after I got figured it out. Just needed to give it a little work.
The new budget year.
Also divided this up by 2.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, got it. Motion.
Motion, please.
I move to award a contract to Aqua Aerobic Systems Inc. for the purchase of 160 FlexMore diffuser assemblies for use at the wastewater treatment facility at a total cost of $22,292.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Next is approval of the proposed Hillsley 100 project team members. As a follow-up to our board discussion for formal approval, following members, one additional member of the public skill being named. Dan and Farhad from the select board. Joe and Amy from the library board. Barbara Doyle Welch as a public member, and Jim Gish as a public member. And non-voting members in advisory capacity and participation is Dan Hart and Julie Harris. Any questions? We have Joe here to I just want to raise, if I could, a procedural point, which was that at our early February meeting, the select board accepted the report of the working group that you would establish. I'm not sure if by accepting that report, you created this new body. I don't think you did. So I would request that in your motion, you create the Middlebury 100 project team, that you refer to the charge in the working group report, and then appoint the members. So the motion that's here, the only thing that I would ask you to add at Joe's request is with the charge as we have approved. So what's the motion?
Okay, I move to approve the creation of the Middlebury 100 project team with the committee members as presented by the library director, Dana Hart, and also with the approval of the charge as presented in, who presented it? By the working group.
Did you second? Okay, we have a motion, a second. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have a established committee, team, a charge, and we wish you luck. When you, we started meeting this thing.
This Thursday, we meet.
Okay. So is Dan with us?
Dan?
Are you there, Dan?
Yeah, how's that?
Okay, we don't have a visual on you, but we can hear you.
It's coming.
We have-
All right. Okay, first item for your consideration tonight is a proposal from VHB for engineering design and permitting services for a roughly 1,000-foot sidewalk starting at the rail platform and paralleling the V-Trans U-Tunnel tunnel that was just recently built last year towards the south and into the Marble Works area, and then along the Marble Works area down to the old lighthouse there. Can you still hear me?
We can.
Okay, all right. So we've got a 50-50 grant from V-Trans for this project. 100,000 share would be V-Trans, 100,000 share would be town. We have a proposal from VHB to start the design on that. Their proposal is $26,750. Some of the important points are to work with the neighbors who are along the west side of the rail U-Channel tunnel. And even though it would be on state right away, they're gonna have to have some input with what works for them. And also communicating with the Marble Works entity for what works for them. So as I said, the proposal is $26,750. The idea is to get this designed over the summer. The grant does have a deadline for construction. I think it's in October. Honestly, I don't think that's going to happen just because of the time with everybody is so backed up on projects and state included. So I'm sure will be a grant amendment for extended time. Not only that, but the cost of everything is kind of crazy right now, and so I think everybody wants to make sure we get a good price for what we're gonna do here. So anyway, I'm requesting to approve the contract to VHB for $26,750.
Questions of the board? Right. Feedback. No? No? That's good.
Sounds
No, I'll put my headphones back in. Let me just see if that makes a difference. Did somebody ask a question?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. The original plan was to go through Maple Street, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the first part.
The original sidewalk was it to go through the Maple Street, right?
Originally, the grant submitted by Jim was to come up the south end of the rail platform and then follow the curvy Maple Street into the Arbor Works. The problem with that is the right of way in that section there by the Addison Independent going north towards Gary Baker's house, it has only an 18-foot right of way. And so there's no way we could do a sidewalk without property takings and so on and so forth, which I don't think is great in the neighborhood. So, as the tunnel project came to a close, we could tell that there was some room there along that wall that would work, and then contacts with V-Trans, they're amenable to it. So this project would be on their right of way.
Is there a
Close
cost,
to it anyway.
is there a cost difference between the two projects?
I think the proposal that Janet put together was higher than this one. And so I think a preliminary estimate from VHP was somewhere around 150,000, but I would say with pricing, all bets are off on what that's gonna be. But this should be less costly than the Maple Street route.
And you have less of a opposition to this, what you're thinking?
Yeah, like I said, the first route would probably have some property acquisition or easements negotiated with some property owners along Maple Street. Here, none of that is there, at least for the area where the houses are. We'll still have to work with the Marble Works. We would have to do that anyway to see what works for them. So
Thank you.
this distance is a little shorter this way too.
I'll move to award a contract to VHB for engineering, design, and permitting services for sidewalk extension for the Untitled rail platform at a total cost of $26,750.
Seconded, is there?
Judy, your hand is up.
Thank you. One, is it possible for us to see others that are in attendance via Zoom?
I can read you the list real quickly. We have Ann Christie, Brian C. Jones, Fred Dunnington.
Yeah, but we can't actually see those people.
Are you talking about people
I
who
think
are
it's
in
about
person?
people here.
Oh, you want to see who is in the room?
No, who are in attendance via Zoom. Because we're able to do that at other meetings. And I don't see that.
Not in the way we have it set up.
Not in the webinar format.
Okay, that's kind of unfortunate. So I will express my concern as I did at the last infrastructure committee meeting. The AOT is planning, to help with this pathway from the new railway station into town. And I do not see any suggestion, regard for green infrastructure, suggestions, and I am opposed to that. If there is not, I think that the state has to be called to task for that. I think the county needs to be called to task for that. This is something that needs to be done, and so that's what it is. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Judy.
Not to get on the weeds, but to respond to Judy's concern, this project is in the design phase. We are just approving the design of this project, and so nothing has been decided about any of it. We don't even know if it will include any drainage as part of the project, which would result in green infrastructure. So we will evaluate it as it gets further in the design process.
Heather, if I may add, I want to see that consideration step by step. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Ross?
I would just throw out one,
You come up to the mic, Ross.
I was just gonna suggest one of the things that could be done in the design phase is ask them to look at using pervious paving instead of just impervious paving. And that would help with the green infrastructure.
So
And
just
reduce runoff.
Just a comment on that, in the book, we have not gotten very far in our discussion about infrastructure and impervious pavement. We are still looking at it, it's hopefully be on the agenda for next month. In the book we got from the state, every example of pervious pavement is not a smooth surface. And I am concerned about access and mobility issues for people who might want to be accessing the train station who have mobility issues. So I think that discussion is a little bit premature at the moment. This project may move ahead without those considerations, but we're working on it. We are looking at it. Judy's provided some information, Dan's got some information from the state. We're going to have time on the agenda for anyone that's interested to talk about it further, and just get more information and know how we can start incorporating these things in. But it may be not something that we can implement immediately.
Sure.
The grant for this particular project set to expire in October. For a project like this, we would want to have had it bid already, and we're only in the design phase. So we need to get the state to give us a extension, hopefully, and then we gotta see what VHB says about possibilities for the site. And as you know, they just installed those U channels and everything. That may limit the possibilities of putting some green infrastructure in because of the construction underneath where we're putting this in VHB's right of way. So it's under consideration. We will evaluate it through the design process, but
Hopefully, maybe you can even do a little of both. Have some, impervious sections for the wheelchair to run on, like rails, if you will, and some impervious or something.
Yeah. And maybe there's possibility for some creativity there. I'm open to the possibility. So, but we're working on it. How's that?
Education.
Yes, we're trying to move in that direction.
Okay, thanks, Ross. Other comments? A second on that motion? Yes, okay. Then we'll go to vote. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Dan?
All right, thank you. The next topic is engineering and design services, preliminary engineer, let's call it that, again from VHB. This is for the Charles Monroe intersection. I don't know if you've had a chance to read through the proposal, it's quite involved. But this is basically, fact finding and let's figure out what we have in the ground, underground, and then have conversations with, neighbors and high school and look at hydraulics, environmental issues, a lot of things. And so this is kind of, the preliminary engineering is, let's see what we have, where do we think we're gonna go, and then have something ready, in case there's additional funding or partnership with the state on this project. So, their proposal is for $49,249. Over the last, this fiscal year, this current fiscal year, and the upcoming fiscal year, there's, I believe that's the right way to say that, Kathleen, we put 50,000 in those two budgets, so we have $100,000 in pigeonhole to start the process of some preliminary planning for this intersection. So we're adequately funded. The proposal from VHB is looking for an estimated completion of August 31 of this year. And there'll certainly be a lot of conversations, with you and the school as we go through this process. So the request is to approve VHB's proposal for $49,249.
Questions?
Dan,
Okay, I was just gonna say, this is interesting because I think it was 2 years ago, or maybe this past year, when we had our offsites, we listed our priorities of what we thought was important in town to do. And although I thought this project was pretty high up there, it came up and with us, very low. So I'm excited to see that we're at least laying the groundwork and getting things done, that if money comes available, we can do this. Because I think that's a pretty crazy intersection there.
This was very high on Dan's priority list.
Both dams, maybe. Both dams, probably.
Well, let me just interject. When this was studied several years ago, the level of performance rating for this intersection was an F. So if that gives you an idea how bad it is, it's bad. So.
And you're convinced that this is one of the areas causing the biggest choke point along Court Street?
Absolutely. We've done all we can with intersection timing. It just gets, you have two east and west movements that can't happen at the same time, that have to run independently, and that takes time away from flow up and down Court Street.
I'm not gonna argue with you, I set you up for that. Good.
And the pedestrian community issue, it's just crazy for kids, they have to stop. And they can't run concurrent with east and west directions either, so they stop everything when that happens, which is great, it's fine, but it just, everything adds to the time.
One other quick question, will this preliminary design take in consideration looking at the Maverick station there? How will it fit in with any improvements or help or not?
Yeah, if any of you haven't seen and it's been a while, the study that VHB did a few years ago, I can get that to you. That's the process. We had public hearings and meetings at high school, and kind of sorted things out. It's a good read. At the end of the day, it was determined that a signalized intersection would work there. I think we all kind of thought a roundabout might be best. But it turns out a four-way cross intersection is going to go there. Basically, Charles Avenue moves to the south, where the Maverick gas station is. The parking flips to the north. Again, that was preliminary, but it was it was a design that worked. I should say preliminary thoughts that worked well for the traffic situation and worked well for the community what they thought. So. If you haven't seen it, let me know, or Kathleen know, and we'll give you that report, because that'll be good background for you as we proceed.
And then I would just, could you remind us, because now that I'm not on infrastructure, I can't keep all of the contractors straight, but, how we have worked with VHB and when in the past?
Yep. Yeah, so VHB, helped, they helped design the Cross Street Bridge project. And they were the tunnel rail project folks. Their, proposals, at least, I should say for at least, but their proposal on this one is pretty top notch, and they cover all the little pieces, so, I expect a very thorough job on the preliminary.
Thank you. Yeah, the only other thing I'll add is I was one of the people who had this low on the list, and I changed my mind after hearing how high it was on Dan's list, so I appreciate that feedback from staff, and just so you know, it does land. I definitely changed my opinion.
I'll move to award a contract to VHB for the preliminary design of the Port Street, Charles Monroe intersection at a total cost of $49,249.
I second. I think I see a hand up.
Okay, Judy?
So once again, and this came up at our last infrastructure committee meeting. I would like to see any proposal made by this organization, this business, include green infrastructure alternatives. If you need further explanation for why that's important, I'd be glad to present, but I personally would not approve any plan for this intersection, which I think is great. I've been backed up on it for numerous times, but if green infrastructure is not part and parcel of this project, I would nix it. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Just for future reference, I think we've got the point. I'm not sure we need to prolong every single project to hear that.
So I'll just add that, Dan, you had some extra copies of the book you got for the infrastructure, right? So if anyone on the select board, wanted a copy of the book that the state puts out, I think Dan had some extra copies.
I would like a copy, please. Dan.
Yeah, if we could all get it, that'd be great.
So, I had this in my bag from the last, I don't know that anybody can see this, but on the pervious pavers, every picture in here is of like pavers, with stone in between, which obviously makes them pervious, so the water can flow down between. But this says to me that, especially in our climate with frost and thaw cycles, that this is not gonna be mobility challenge friendly. And I'm not sure that on this particular sidewalk example, I wanna test this in that area. Like, I think it might be a good idea to find a small place where we could do some of this and see how it behaves and how it handles and how the mobility issues are, but maybe not in the Maple Street Amtrak corridor. So, anyway.
It's probably a little bit more costly than just flat out pouring concrete, isn't it?
It is going to be a lot more. It requires a considerable base difference than just pouring concrete.
What we look at, $63 a foot and $95 a foot?
There is information in this book about the requirements for what's required for base preparation to install something like this. Yes, it will most definitely cost more than the state.
Yeah, I would just say pretty safely here that there will have to be green infrastructure treatments in some of the design of this intersection. Because a new parking lot is going to be built, certainly is gonna have some. And, yeah, it's just, there's a drainage swale, it's part of the creek, little creek branch that goes through there. Yeah, it's gonna have to have something there, that's kind of, I think, basically understood, but we'll make sure that happens.
Well, I do think, if you look at our park downtown, I think we have tried to, where feasible, incorporate it in some of our recent projects.
Yep.
I would imagine that that's part of the standard of these civil engineers that are doing some of this work.
That's right.
Any other questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Okay, the next item is a request for having some survey work done up at Chipman Hill at our water reservoir site. Dufresne Group has submitted a more extensive proposal for doing engineering for that. We'll address that in a future meeting, but that was $62,000. But as part of that proposal, there's a component for surveying for $3,055. Like I said, this is not a contract, it will be part of that other one, but at least we wanted to get the survey going very shortly because one, the leaves aren't on the trees, it's a pretty heavily wooded area up there, and they want to get some shots done while the leaves are off the trees. So this is a request for you to approve $3,055 to Dufresne Group to go ahead and do the survey. They are the company that did the water hydraulic study of our entire system a few years ago. And one of the things to get going on was a 1.3 million gallon reservoir for water tank addition to the one that's up there. One of the tank manufacturers, two of their reps stopped by last week. We took a walk around the area so they get an idea of what it looks like. So for right now, I just need you to approve the expenditure of $3,055 for the survey work so they can get going. Design would take place over the summer.
Just to clarify, Dan's comment about the hydrology study in his, I would clarify a little more, this was in the top 3 or top 5 projects of that original, this project was in that. So I wanted to add that clarification.
I just have a couple questions, but go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, I submitted this project to the DWSRF program, that's the state revolving fund for drinking water facilities. It's a priority list application. The state's been kind of, poking us a little bit the last couple, 3 years about doing something about the storage. We needed additional storage based on our daily demand. So you can see some of the businesses, out in the industrial park, are using a little bit more water, therefore generating a little more wastewater. So we need to get it done. I really expect, I'm surprised that the state hasn't told us, you need to get this done, and here's your schedule. So I'm trying to get a little bit ahead on that issue, and I would hope that if not this year, next year, there would be some funding from the state, because this is they know this is a need.
So,
You can make the motion. I don't want to. Yeah, questions?
How big is the current tank up there?
1.5 million gallons.
Okay. And you answered my question why we were thinking about another tank. Yeah, that current tank is in good shape, right? I mean, we did some work on it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was built in 77 or 78, somewhere around there. It certainly wouldn't, at some point, some years down the road, that's probably going to need a redo. But it's okay now. We're just really limited on maybe the daily demand with fire flows. That's the concern.
we replaced fix the cover on the existing tank and put a fence up around so that we can keep people like some, if it was just cracking in the cover, right?
It's resurfaced.
There was some
Yes.
spalling on the surface, and then, there were a few areas that had a little bit larger cracks, and those were, routed out and sealed, so, yeah.
That was all in the cover though, right, Dan? In the,
Yeah, and there was some on the side, the hairline, crack, not that anything was leaking, but it was just, maintenance thing that we should, just keep at it, so seal those up.
Any other questions?
Do we have any issues with our water supply meeting demand? Is it just about storage at this point?
Well, yes and no. We're looking at, I also submitted a priority list application for a new well site out by well number 2, which is just south of Carreras on 116. And we'll see how that fits, in their list. So that's excuse me, that's another thing to get after is another alternative well site.
Yes, please.
I'll move to award a contract to the Dufresne Group for a site survey for a total cost of $3,055 to be conducted in preparation for the installation of a 1.3 million gallon supplemental water storage tank on Chimney Hill.
A second.
Second, any other comments or questions?
Well, I do have a comment. I'm Tony Riffle. I'm one of the Patel trustees. And I just heard about this recently. The new reservoir is on Patel land. We're talking now about another 1.3 million gallon tank. I talked to Dan this afternoon, and he said it might be, it would be a circular thing, 100 feet in diameter. It's our responsibility to see that the land is used according to the will of Joe Patel. And that would be a significant factor. Certainly, we should be involved in it to a great degree. So,
Agreed.
Understood.
there was a lot of legal work being done to allow this reservoir to be built back in '75. I imagine we'll go through the same thing.
So what would the timeline look like on that? After you have the survey and potential design, you would reach out and provide the information for them to look at, consider, or what's your process on this?
Well, certainly, once the survey is going to tell us, where can this thing go? They're kind of limited by, just the hydraulics of it. This tank has to have for economics, has to have the same high water level, functioning level as the existing tank. Putting it higher, it creates a whole lot of issues with, control, getting water in and out. So it's going to have to be, like I said, most economically placed at the same hydraulic level as existing. And so that's what the survey is going to tell us. Where can that be? So it really limits to, it's just a limit of where it could go. It's going to have to go right up to the new one, or maybe up slope a little bit. These are, most of these tanks, that size, they're round, with a dome top on it, all concrete. It's all pre-stressed, panels that are stood up in place. Most of it would be submerged, similar to the one that's there now. If it's on a slope, which most that side is, the downside would have more concrete wall exposed, the upside not so much. But the survey is going to help decide where it could go, and then we have a conversation of with a trust and say, okay, here's what we know, but we don't know anything until we get a survey on it.
Sound fair? So, any other questions? None, all in favor of approving the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the Dan, you were gonna give us an update on some other projects?
Yeah, I don't have anything on the teen center. I wasn't part of that one, so I can't help you there, but I can talk about Triangle Loop project. We had a meeting and it looks like that's gonna go, Seminary Street to Elm Street to, across the Pulpit Bridge, area, and then head north, of course, Oregon Horse Farm Road or whatever. And then a detour would be signed to go through the downtown area. I think that makes most sense. Everybody thought that was acceptable. So, that's where that's at. I think at a future infrastructure committee meeting, we're gonna talk about, overnight parking. One of the comments was, do we have enough overnight parking and is it accessible for folks? So Chief Hanley have to be a part of that conversation. So that's a future topic. And I just want to mention that today we had a pre-construction meeting for the Washington Court Square Water Main project. They will start mobilization April 4th. If there's a schedule on if it's not already up, it will be shortly on the town website. Construction goes at least through September 15th. Most of the work will be at night. So when you look at that schedule, you'll see some gray area and some yellow areas on the timeline. The gray is at night, the yellow is during the day. Most of the construction will be at night. Bob Harrigan, who is the project inspector for Otter Creek Engineering, has spoken, if not once, several times with the businesses along there, letting them know what the situation is. So the work will start probably April 11th, and it will be right at the intersection of Seymour Street and Main Street. And they're gonna start about 5 o'clock in the evening and put a bell vault in that intersection on Seymour Street. So here we go. Hang on, but can't wait. That's the big news.
Okay, thank you. Dan. Any questions of Dan while we have him here?
I know you said you don't have details, but do you know if proposals are coming in for the work on the teen center?
They were supposed to be here March 11th. I know Bill's been out. I didn't have a chance to ask how they went. So unless Kathleen, did you happen to
I did not.
hear anything? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
Okay. Brings us to you, Andy, and met you on Zoom, but
Yeah, are you gonna hang around?
It's good to see the owls.
Yeah.
Did they work well for you?
you know, we weren't out in the viewing audience, here, when you look at it up on the screen, like it would capture the speaker pretty well. But I'm not sure because of the field, whether it was really easy to see on TV or not, I don't know. But it's, the alternative is, we're all on Zoom, and we felt that we were more productive once we could come together, even if we had to wear masks to be able to be together and have the dialogue.
Well, it's good to meet you all. Thank you, Brian and Kathy, for putting us on the agenda tonight. My name is Andy Sandbrook. I live at 287 Airport Road in Middlebury. I am the co-secretary of the Middlebury Airport Neighborhood Association, otherwise known as MANA. So I just want to speak briefly. There's a letter that's in your packet, I know that's been shared, drawn up by MANA to the government. I just want to speak briefly about that and why that is in your packet. This was written on behalf of MANA, requesting of the governor that we be allowed to participate in the current recrafting of the Middlebury Airport Master Plan that is currently ongoing. We ask tonight that the Select Board considers drafting a supporting letter to the governor for his consideration. It is fairly urgent. It is urgent because you understand that the master plan redraft is already well in process. We don't believe, Manor does not believe that this should be that contentious. Than just simply neighbours desiring to provide their input into a master plan that could impact the development of the airport for the next decade. I think the FAA requires master plans to be done at least every 10 years, I think. So public input like tonight, it happens frequently through state and local government planning. And rather like the Middlebury Town Planning Commission, engaged 7 volunteer residents to help craft the town plan in 2017. So what have we asked? So in the letter to the governor, we asked for the formation of another acronym, the Citizens Advisory Committee, as a solution to get voices to the table from the neighborhood around the design of the airport master plan. What is the CAC? We didn't invent that acronym, and it's nothing that Manor has created or invented. It is a recognized structure by the FAA, and it is recommended and frequently used by airport sponsors. So VTrans, in this case, is the airport sponsor for Middlebury Airport. The structure, the CAC, the CAC structure, and its role is set out in FAA documentation. And I think that was referenced in the background materials that we got. It's a link to what we call the FAA circular around that. So why are we doing this? We are seeking a seat at the table via the CAC, the CAC, while the master plan is in its formative stage, and ask for your support in that request. We're not asking that tonight, we don't expect tonight that the select board will solve all the communication problems that may have been in the past between the residential community around the airport and VTrans. I think that would be a worthy ambition, but we feel that that may take a more detailed conversation between VTrans, Manor, and the select board. Tonight, so specifically tonight, we're just asking for support of our letter that we will submit to the government on this topic. What would the CAC do? What would this committee do? It wouldn't have veto or decision-making power in the master plan process itself. That clearly remains with VTrans, but it would allow us to provide input early and often into the plan as it's being created. Just as background, there is another acronym, a TAC, a Technical Advisory Committee, that does exist currently and is helping to provide input into that plan. And that comprises of 16 folks at the moment. 7 are VTrans employees, 2 are from Addison County Planning and Chamber of Commerce, and 4 are FAA employees. 1 is the owner of a business at the airport, and 1 is a seat held by the town of Middlebury. Another one set aside is a hangar, is for a hangar owner. So that actually has not been filled, and that's a vacant seat at the table right now. So as you can tell, there's no de facto representation from any resident of the town of Middlebury, let alone the area around the airport itself. And we are requesting, managed requesting through the mechanism of a CAC for the rebalancing of the voices around the table, including representatives of the 50, 100, 200 folks who live and work around the airport and who could and will be impacted by the developments of the next decade of the new master plan. So in summary, we believe the formation of a CAC and CAC will be the only way to accomplish this rebalancing in regards to the master plan for the neighbours around the airport. And we do ask the select board to support our letter to the governor and further show that support by also writing a letter to Governor Scott's support. That's it.
Questions again? I think there's other You, I'm okay with this. You okay? Or is it not getting enough?
Okay. I just get, if a CAC was formed, the CAC also has the same kind of representation as TPC, meaning you as man, it would, the CAC wouldn't be a group of homeowners around the airport in a CAC. You would probably have one seat on the CAC. Businesses would have a seat, other people would have a seat. It would be composed of very similar people that the TPC says. At least in the instruction there, it said TAC. It says that it's a lot of representation. So it's not a group of homeowners.
No,
You would have one seat.
well, one or maybe a couple, but yes, but the FAA, in addition, the FAA has created this concept of a CAC for a reason, and it is for the community voice to be heard. I guess they believe that the TAC is going to be filled with FAA folks, V-Trans folks, maybe regional planning folks, economists, or technical advisors, and there was no specific role for the community within that. So, which is why the structure of a CAC, the FAA bothered to come up with that suggestion as a second.
True, but it would be a mix of groups, businesses, local people,
Yes.
town, I think it even says government officials and things like that would be on that committee also.
Yes.
So, okay.
Non-technical advice.
Okay, right. I just wanted to know that you understood that you could create a local community group all your own to do this. In fact,
No, but if you look at the, also within that FAA circular, it specifically calls out neighborhood associations as being
as I've seen,
as a party of interest.
Okay.
As well as homeowners, other non-neighborhood community homeowners.
Okay. Any questions?
I see hands up.
Hey, Judy.
Can I speak?
Yes, you can, Judy.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. First off, it's very difficult to tell who's speaking, because of the way this meeting is being, transmitted. I can't see who is speaking, I can't tell, who's in attendance. I know that Andy was just speaking, but I have no idea who responded to his comments. And that's not working for me. So if there's any way to correct that, that would be great. In regards to what Andy just mentioned, the TAC has not enlisted community members to support their ideas and their interests. So why is it that the Community Advisory Committee should necessarily enlist members that would be totally adverse to this interest? And I don't know who suggested that, Dan, I'm thinking it was you, but I don't have any idea, because I can't see.
It was me.
So if you
Yes.
can explain, that would be great.
I didn't say soliciting any people that would be adverse to this. I just said that a CAC, according to the materials that we have read, is supposed to be a representation of all organizations, local butters, airport personnel, homeowners association, homeowners, businesses, government officials, and things like that. I didn't say anything about being adverse to the project. I just said I just wanted to make sure that Manna understood that it wasn't only gonna be a group of homeowners that were gonna be on a CAC sitting before, and advising. That's all I said.
Dan, just to comment, the C in CAC stands for Citizens Advisory Committee. So,
All I'm quoting for is right out of the description on page 28. I don't think I said anything that was not on that 18 or 28. The paragraphs that you.
So Dan, is it okay that the technical advisory committee consists of a very focused group?
They're technical, yes. It has to be a very focused group. That's why it's called the technical.
But it's not okay for the citizens advisory group to be focused.
I didn't say that.
Well, it sounded like it did,
No, I
sorry.
didn't say anything like that. I just was talking about what the composition should be like. So,
It sounded like it did, sorry.
Who has the authority to name the members of the CAC?
I don't know. Does anybody know the answer to that?
my understanding is it's the airport sponsor, which would be V-Trans.
Okay, Judy, I'm gonna,
Shining right at me. I was talking.
so now we have Ann Christie.
Sure. It's only looking at you now. No.
Sorry, Paula. Did you have your hand up? Paula?
Paula, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Paula.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, dear.
We can hear you, Paula.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
We can
Okay,
hear
I
you.
was just wondering, if you can hear me, I was wondering if we can get back to the question that Andy raised about whether the select board will support the letter. Can we get back to that question that Andy raised? The question he raised, Andy,
Yes.
Andy, do you want to raise the question again for yourself?
The one question we have tonight is we're asking the select board to support, we've seen our letter to the governor, and we would like you to support that, and ideally write supporting letter to the governor that we can include in that letter as well.
I think of all of us sitting here on the select board, you have the most experience with the state in the dealing at 250.
Okay, I'm gonna just give you then, my thoughts. We've been dealing on this for a couple of months, and, there is no doubt in my mind that we've got a major problem with the communication from state airport division to the town and citizens around the airport. Manifests itself yet, again, in that people are unaware of what's going on. And it became a real concern a couple months ago. And some of the things that I found in the process are systemic problems. I'll give you an example, the failure for notifications. Some of that is we're finding our town databases and getting updated. Another thing, there was, I think, problems with the mailings. Then there's this master planning that's going on, and all the players that are currently named on the TAC aren't even aware when there's a TAC meeting. in that the TAC actually has a membership designated for the town planner. And this is on master plan. And on hangar permit applications, Act 250. And then on cutting of trees, we have problems where trees are being cut and residents, if they have been, I tend to think that they never were notified. And so I have a real major concern if we have a breakdown that is catastrophic. We have a long-term relationship. The airport is not going away. Our trust was really damaged years ago when there was a state agent who was blatantly providing misleading information to the town and to the citizens there. And just when we were trying to build it back, we have a real systemic problem in communication. I've talked with the Act 250 district coordinator to try to find out some of the problems with Act 250 notifications. I talked with 3 different players at the Agency of Transportation to find out what's going on, brainstorm ideas that might work. I was really thinking a citizens advisory committee was a great idea, but I put more time and thought into it. And one of the things that in my discovery I found is that the master planning process is being done by a consultant, and they're underway. And so trying to figure out how that will actually, how you can impact a consultant. And frankly, I misunderstood a citizens advisory committee, and I thought it was basically manna. So now I kind of even more process and thinking, this is for me, it's been a working process. So experience-wise, throughout my lifetime, I've in the military, whenever we had operations in an area where you're dealing with civilian component, 3.5 years in Europe and Panama and other commanding the Army Guard and the dealing with the range up in Underhill, and the impact that has on the community. And then right here, dealing with the Bridge and Rail project. And every single time we had to have somebody who was a point person for communications going in all directions. All them, I'll give you an example everybody's very familiar with right here. When we had lawsuits going on, we had everybody up in arms on the Middlebury. It's going to be non-existent at the end of the Bridge and Rail project. And we put our thinking caps on and we went and actually met with people who are the head of the project, the head of V-Trans. And realized that the project as designed is gonna cause a lot of pain. And everybody working together, I mean, the project was planned, it spent a lot of money. It's no different than where we're at in the airport right now, we're in the middle of the plan. As we looked at it, we had an opportunity to provide input. We got, it wasn't totally, we lied to, if I said, we walked up there and said, oh, we want to do it this way. Oh, okay, yeah, we'll do it the way you want. The town had to flex its muscle and push for what we felt was best for the town of Middlebury. And that was not what some who were in the throes of a lawsuit and everything believed that we would just stay as we were. But it was a significant change from the original plans that the state had. So I say this to say that I'm a believer that the town has to be people on the forefront of the negotiations with AOT. And secondly, we have to have a defined process now and going forward for clear, open communications. Whether that's quarterly meeting or whatever it is, we cannot let this happen again out at our airport because it's broken down in my time on the select board now. This is the fourth time. And it's embarrassing. And frankly, it's unacceptable. And every one of those is about communication. Today, I worked with V-Trans, said, look, we have to have better communication, and Andy has sold me on the fact that we have to have a component of someone representing the airport community on the discussions with the planning, the current ongoing plan. And Secretary Flynn, who is a friend of Middlebury, and I have worked with him over the years a fair amount, and he has agreed, without even having to send a letter, he has agreed that this is unacceptable and that he would accept an individual of our appointment onto the town. And that they would have the same access as the rest of the technical advisors that would provide different viewpoints to them. And that group will get the plan, as I understood from our conversation, that group will get the plan to review and comment before it goes public. My final request of them would be that before it goes public and they start the process of permitting, that they come and present to the select board and community in an open meeting plan. And it's an opportunity for us to question, understand where they're at, and provide them comments before they start the process of permitting for acceptance of the final plan. It is not, it comes shy of a large CAC, but for me, time is of the essence. And the most important thing where we have broken down is in the communication aspect. We do have, we always have an opportunity to provide input if we know what's going on. The problem is nobody knew what's going on. And that's my proposal. I gave an email to some of those that I knew were involved last night, just to give them an idea of kind of where I was thinking at the time. had an opportunity to see if I could get I wanted to know if there was a TAC. Ironically, coincidentally, as I was sending my first email today about is there a TAC and who's on it, I had just hit send and ping, I got an email from Andy with the description of the TAC. So I don't know if he's got my line book, but it's pretty good intel. But then I got probably half an hour or an hour later, I got a response from V-Trans confirming that there was a TAC and who's the membership. And lo and behold, I see the town is supposed to be a member, and here I am supposed to be the chair of the select board, and I don't know that. I'm embarrassed. I'm quite irritated, to be honest. But, and I apologize, but I think, my personal opinion, or can do what vote is it wants. My personal opinion is that we need to correct, and I'm committed to correcting the information. I put more time than I really can give, but I'm putting a lot of time into trying to fix that because it's important to me. And that we work to determine who's our best representative, and get them through our committee nomination process and onto it. We can short circuit that to get it done right off. So that we have a representative on with that. That's my kind of counter proposal. Part of it is a letter to the governor is not a quick response, and I feel like I was able to negotiate a very acceptable solution for this meeting. I've sent letters to the governor before, and sometimes it's a long process to get up on his calendar. So that's where my headspace is at.
You can, Ross, you can jump over on that mic too there. If you just talk to the mic, then people on, watching on Zoom should be able to hear, they should be able to hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Brian, for your efforts on behalf of the citizens of East Middlebury. The letter did include mention of this idea of another option, which is having someone from the residential area represented on the TAC. And I think you're probably right. Trying to go through the governor's office is kind of who knows how long that could take. And I know the process already is, for the plan is already in process. So I think that if the select board, I would encourage the select board to go with that idea. Because I think we need the ask of MANA, which is to have someone from our community there at the table while the process is ongoing. But I also like your idea of having some kind of a point person for communication, which I don't think should be the same person. And so perhaps the select board might also find someone who could be kind of a liaison between V-Trans and the town and the community, so that we're aware of what's going on, when it's going on, so that whoever gets appointed to the TAC isn't not all on their shoulders. And luckily, we have two of the folks from MANA that were willing to volunteer to be on either the Citizens Advisory Committee or the Transportation Advisory Committee, both Andrew and Eugene. And so I would put forward, if I may, them as possible candidates for your consideration tonight to get that process going.
Thank you, Ross. You know, we have hands
Paula,
Paula, you're muted.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Paula, we hear you. Are we good? You're muted now
You're
again.
muted now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, got you now.
Okay, so I was, while you were talking, Brian, I sort of got lost to the immediate question, and that's why I was wondering about Andy restating it. So you don't feel that, you could write a letter that would be too slow? And so I'm confused because it was a recommendation of Ruth Hardy, and when she thought we should approach the governor, that would be, he's the one who can stop things, and that's the approach. So can you speak to that point and which representatives like Robin Scheid and Ruth Hardy and Amy Sheldon are supporting this? So we could have somebody from Senator Sanders' transportation team who would get on board. And so I really, can you help, since you are connected with the governor, how this would work? Why we're suggested on the one hand to go to the governor, to write the governor. That's our focus. And yet you're saying that's going to take too long. So can you help us understand why sending that letter and having this other support behind us won't be effective? It won't be too slow. And I'm not being sarcastic. I'm really wanting to understand your understanding of working with the government.
Sure.
Did you hear all of that?
I did, Paula, and I'm happy to share my thought process on that. I'm not sure what you told our representatives and Senator Hardy, but and
They were at our meetings, by the way.
yeah,
They've been at their meetings.
and I've seen their emails, but my guess is they haven't done any of the backgrounding. And
Okay.
so, and to get Senator Sanders involved, what we're talking about right now is a consultant working on a master plan. It is real early stages. And I think.
Brian, I think, I'm sorry, I don't really mean to interrupt you, and it's harder on Zoom, but early stages, we live right here, early stages, and we go down the road and something's clear cut. That's not early stages, that's in the process, that's already happened. And if you're talking about, like that, yeah, you were picking up everything we've been through for quite a long time now, and trying to get some movement. And so, no, this is happening.
No, Paula, the clear cut
Yeah.
was a permit that was issued a year ago.
We know that,
Well,
But
there
was
are
the-
different actions.
But in the end, this is the kind of stuff that's happening. It got delayed, but in the larger plan, how does one stop that plan that went through a while ago?
I would love to talk to you not across this Zoom because it's our two-way conversation's not going well, but.
I know, I'm so sorry. I appreciate your time, and
It's,
I was trying to make it there, and it's hard for me to get there.
the clear cutting is part of maintenance. It has nothing to do with the master plan. The master plan is looking at facilities. I mean, it all ties in, but it's not a result of the master plan that they're doing right now.
That's correct, I'm sorry, you're right. It's the larger picture of, when we're talking about wanting a seat at the table, and we're hearing a certain kind of response, that were moved further and further away from the table, and yet we're right there on top of the effects of what happened. And asking for a seat at the table would seem like we need that representation since we are right there on the line that's being affected.
I'm not sure, did you hear me say that the Secretary of Transportation conceded to provide a seat at the table?
I don't know actually how that translates in terms of advice and planning.
Well, there's the Technical Advisory Committee. Would be a seat on the Technical Advisory Committee, which has already stood up and exists.
Right. So
Anyway, I just shared what I think is a viable solution. And
can you state it, could you state it again in simple form completely?
sure.
Thank you.
So that, number one, we would have a representative from both the town government, which is our planner, and a representative from the Citizens Committee, which would be part of the TAC. So we would have 2 town representatives out of the, how many did you say it is?
16.
16. So we would have 2 from the town. We also have 2 others from the community. There's Rob Carter from the Chamber and Mike Winslow from the Aspen County Regional Planning Commission. So we would actually have 4 from our community representing our community in that planning process. And then, secondly, that we would work as soon as I have to be gone for a week on business, but then Prem Prakash, myself, and Michelle and Dan from HTA Transportation would meet and work to construct a better communication pathway for us to move forward with, so we don't end up with these lapses in communication and which results in distrust. I would tell you that the people we're working with, Michelle has been a good partner for us in the past, and I know that the Secretary of Transportation is an excellent man who has done a lot for the community of Middlebury. So I don't see them personally trying to slide anything by us.
Okay, no, well, thank you. That made it a lot clearer. And so thank you so much for highlighting that. Thanks, Brian.
You're welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Paula. So then Judy.
Judy? Hi, Judy.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thanks so much. So can I just ask, how other members of the select board feel about this? I hear your voice, Brian. How does everybody else feel?
Sure. I'll start. I'm fully in support of what Brian has done. He's obviously got a seat on the TAC, and I don't think that a CAC would ever be organized because, as the description there, this is a pretty small project compared to FAA projects around, and I would think that the reason a CAC wasn't set up was probably, number one, they ignored it, and number two, because of the size of the project, they probably figured the TAC would cover everything. Also, I think if we send a letter to the governor and we endorse the letter, the governor is gonna send it to the secretary, and the secretary is gonna say, I already talked to Brian Carpenter, and we've given them the seat on the TAC, and it's gonna go back to the governor, and the governor's going, you've already got what you've asked for, so I think this is win-win. I think Brian has researched it out and added even more with the already starting with the communications. And shockingly, we found out that we as a town government have a seat on it. I'm fully in support of doing this and not endorsing a letter to go to the governor.
Yeah, first of all, to get back to the point, really appreciate Andy for the excellent solution, and Brian, thank you for the thoughtful response. It was great. You convinced me, I was for CSC first. I can settle for, that would still be my first preference, but I would settle for TSC. My question would be, would we appoint the person on tech, and would they be able to pick one of the people to be on the tech?
I think it should come through us.
With their agreement.
With their agreement, absolutely.
Okay. The second thing is the tag that we currently have is not a functional body right now. The list of that is Rob Carter is not on the Chapter of Commerce, so it's not a current list. So how functional is this going to be when once you have this going would be my concern. But so far, the communication, like you said, it has been disastrous from the state. That's the reason these people are here right now. They are concerned that they are not being heard or they're not being informed. So that's the reason I was waiting for CSC, but I would settle for the tag as long as we make this functional, the tag going forward. Thank you.
That would be a point of discussion when we meet with, Fred and I meet with Michelle and Dan.
Just a general question, was members of the tag, are they even aware that they're members now? Like Jen, for example, I'm like,
Well, at the risk of, we were not aware.
exactly.
So, yeah. There's a lot to be fixed in our relationship.
And I can assure you that once Brian has given the word, and the Selectboard has given you the word, that we will be on top of that. It's not gonna be what happened in 2016 or 18 or whatever. Once we give you the word that we will be, like we did the Railway project, we had a constant back and forth with AOT and Secretary Flynn and stuff. So if Brian has said that we will support you, that means that we will support you. Did I say too much?
I don't have anything further to add. I'm in agreement with your proposal.
Yeah, I think that communication is obviously the big problem here, and not knowing what the plans are, what the planning process is, and how people can be involved. If the CAC was the right way to go, I'd be entirely in favor of that. From what Brian suggested, it sounds like seats on the already existing, possibly effective TAC is the better way to get involved in this process right now. Yeah.
Just quickly, I'm sorry. Do we have to advertise for a position?
We have to advertise for positions that are required by our town charter or required by state statute. This is one that we could appoint without advertising.
Thank you.
And I was just gonna say, you know, if MANA or the neighbors start moving through this process and it doesn't work, I'm open to signing a letter to the governor as you had originally requested. I do agree that it would take longer, just knowing how committees work. I think it would probably be months before you would start getting information.
So all those things would have to be in place, and it seems like this is a direct route to get that information and start that communication that is not happening. So, but that said, I hope we hear back if things are not going well. And we can always change things in the future, but I do agree that this is a good plan.
Ross?
I don't at all doubt your conversations, but with my limited experience dealing with the state, should you approve this idea that we're talking about, I really hope you'll do something in writing. Get things in writing with the state and not just rely on your conversation. No disrespect, it's just, please.
Really noted.
My name is Colin Brown, and my property also abuts the airport. And I just have a question about timing. You know, I think, like everybody else, I think has said, although I would like to see a CAC created, I think if this TAC can happen quickly and without so much red tape, and, you know, whoever's there from the Selectboard and the community can get it moving, that would be better. And I'm just wondering, based on your conversations, Brian, what your sense is of what the timing is. I mean, when will we have somebody officially from the select board and from the community actually on the TAC and able to contact the chair to say, can you meet next week or something, because, you know, delay has been the name of the game here. And I really think this is, as I understand you, your motivation is largely to move this along. So I'm just asking a better sense if you've gotten any from folks you've talked to or what you've envisioned, so we know when we can move it forward.
So I'll be gone. In answer to that, I need to meet with them and go get, I need to get a bunch of notes of process and timing and everything. And actually, Andy can share with me all of these. Thank you, Andy, for the amount of time and effort you put into this.
Yes. Good job.
It's very helpful to have a starting point. But I plan to meet with them if it works from the schedule as well as the week after I get back, which is the first week of April.
So maybe I misunderstood. I thought the meeting that you and Fran and Michelle, one more person, were having together was really a more global conversation about moving forward, and the TAC was sort of a separate piece.
Well, it is, but we need to do both, and we need to appoint somebody here at the select board. So when's our next meeting?
April 12th.
So we need to have everything ready to appoint on April 12th. So that's.
So is that when you would appoint both members? And is that,
Well, the other members already appointed.
Oh, you just have to have one of you.
It's not about.
Oh, one of you.
It's our town,
It's a
town planner, it's the town.
The town planner.
Yeah.
Right. And then one was, yeah. Okay. So it sounds like it's just one person that you have to appoint, the town planner.
I think you should have a conversation about who you want to appoint to Mana and bring it to the board.
We can get it to you ahead of time.
We did that.
Got it. Pardon?
We had that conversation, we had two candidates, they're both here tonight.
Oh, okay, so it's either Andy or me.
That's correct. I was saying,
Well, it needs to be one, so I already said that. But can I speak up?
Oh, yeah, I take
I
my,
mean, are you,
I'm not. All set. I just wanted to get the timing on the record, because I just wasn't clear on that.
listening to everybody here, you know, the quiet sitting in the background there. My history of this place here dates back
Can
to
you state your name just for the record?
Pardon?
State your name for the record.
Eugene George. Schoolhouse Hill, south side of the airport. I've been there since the late 70s. That's when we built our house. That's when there was no rules and regulations with the airport could do. That stuff happened in front of my house. I'm from my house. We went in there and excavated about 20 feet of dirt, which was a berm between me and the airport. They took that out of there. Mr. Bowen did this. Called the state up within hours. They red flagged the thing, shut it down. They knew it was a mistake to even begin with. They were taking that soil out of there because it's top soil. And they stripped it. You can really, if you go there, you can take a look how much of that dirt was taken out of it. We had trees on top of that, which blocked off a lot of the south side of the airport. Not tall trees, but the berm and the noise wasn't as bad. Well, that happened. Another thing that happened right in front of my house was they spread raw sewage right onto the ground of the airport. One phone call, they came down and shut that right down. So a lot of that stuff happened. The town didn't know about it. It was just, it's been like that since the early 80s, late 70s. And that's only a couple of things. I've been in front of this board, not this board, but the old board before when all the helicopters used to sit down in South Bend. And I walked into the board meeting, having a little recorder, which was a little tape recorder, and as we were talking, I turned it on. They all told me to turn that off. So that's what's in front of our house. And they made them open their eyes, but you know, back then nothing really happened because we didn't have any power. And I just want to say that. And you know, we're here, we've moved along a lot further than all these coworkers with us. And you know, there used to be just a few houses there. Now there's over 100 houses. That's something else the town has to realize. Tax dollars, how many tax dollars coming out of there? A lot of nice homes there. There's another 25 plots up there that Johnson wants to develop behind my house. Okay, is it residential or is it an airport? Is it both? If it's both, then we have to work together. Better than what we have. I want to thank you guys for
Would you just comment personally on whether you would be interested in serving on the council?
I will talk to all the, part of me say yes, I just gotta confer with everybody else.
Okay. I just, Ross.
No, right.
Ross volunteered, I just wanted to hear it from you directly.
Yeah, no, yes.
And the same for Andy.
Yes, I would.
I've got some good writers over here, I'm not a good writer. I don't play on the real side. And it takes that to be able to communicate a lot, so I would confer with them and see who.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
And by the way, I need my neighbor.
You should have disclosed that.
Wow.
For hearts of things.
And
I am.
Yeah, hi, everyone. I very much appreciate everyone's comments, and Brian, I wanted to let you know how much I truly appreciate how you embraced the dilemma. I truly, truly appreciate that. And putting us on attack, I think, is a great immediate step. And I have a request. As you continue forward and meeting with Mr. Flynn and Prabhakash and Michelle to work on the communication, I kind of envision a possibility of someone on the TAC being our short-term solution and perhaps forming a CAC as our long-term solution towards good communication amongst all parties. So would you consider that, keeping that in mind with as your talks go forward?
Absolutely, and you know, looking at any ideas on how we can improve communications. So that's not
Thank you.
anything I have predetermined.
And can I just add to that? That's a good point because
Thank you.
the FAA does recognize that aspect of the CAC as well, that it's not just for the master plan, because in certain cases it can be kind of clunky, but they do recognize that an ongoing relationship using a CAC for other issues as well is something that the FAA again recommends sponsor look at. They don't mandate it, but they just.
I think we need to put everything out, as possibilities, and figure out what's going to work best for a particular situation.
Ryan, you had suggested that having consultants doing the planning made it tougher for a CAC to get involved, I think. I think that's
That's
right.
just my personal opinion. You get a guy who's contracted, who's halfway through a project and start a new committee for him to work with, or to work with, where they already have an existing. It just seemed to me like it would be funky.
Okay.
And especially if they're not used to doing it. So I don't know, I was just thinking through, how do you fuse some of these thoughts into it without proposing it? You don't have the V-Trans, you don't have the governor on top, you got a consultant out here who's like, I'm paid to turn out a product.
Right. Okay.
So I don't know,
Thanks for the clarification. I wasn't sure what the consultant piece had to do with
it's
the
just,
process.
well,
Yeah.
it's just, it's a person who's an independent worker, who's
Sure.
working to turn out a product for a fee.
Right, not a V-Trans group or, yeah.
And finally, we have Judy Brooks.
Hi, Judy.
Judy is.
One second. Hello. He's on. Am I on?
You are on.
It's hard.
Are you all set?
Okay. Okay, so if I'm on, Jim Gish, when he was the liaison between, the AOT and the town for the bridge project, was he paid for that?
Jim Gish's position was a paid position. It's a little bit of difference. It is something that is an option that I would like to explore with the state, what the funding is. But Jim Gish was working on a 70-something million project, which is a little bit different. Doesn't mean that it's not something we would ask for. It's already in my thought process to.
Okay, because I think with the time and effort that's going to go into this, it should be considered. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I don't think this is anything that needs a motion. If you're okay with that, I think it's just that we need to expedite the process. I do ask you to provide us a couple options for rep from Vienna to be our citizen on the nominate who we would put on the committee.
So at the last minute meeting, which is where we decided on penning this letter to the governor, we all agreed and voted to nominate both Eugene and Andrew were the ones that volunteered, and everyone agreed they were going to be our candidates.
So you.
So those are your
We
candidates.
just heard from.
Right. Yeah, I don't know why you thought you needed to go back and ask. You said something about checking with everybody.
I would like to make sure that I'm at the spot, and the way you guys write and all that, I don't do that. And it takes someone in that position too. I can speak up.
Well,
So it's something that we ought to take care of ourselves.
I see this as someone who can, I don't think this is the type of thing where they get in a committee room and they're, like a board meeting. I think they distribute and then share information. The state's still doing a tremendous amount of Zoom, and so having somebody helping you on that. I don't see that as being an issue. If you have one voice, can't have them speaking for you.
So your usual process for town appointments is one meeting, you have nominations, at the next meeting.
On this one, it's one meeting.
It is one meeting, okay, so we can have time.
You got time, that's why we need it for the 12th.
Okay, we'll get something to you before the 12th.
Yeah, so like the week before the 12th, whatever that is, if you could get that to Kathleen, probably like, is that enough time? The week before the 12th?
We like to have everything, by the Wednesday before.
That way it can be built in the packet and built into the agenda and built into the warning, so.
Wow.
Nice job, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank all of you for your time.
Now you all have to stay here for the rest of the meeting. It took us a lot of time, so you gotta take that.
I don't know, I don't know.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Next is a request from the Churchill family of 1 Forest Lane.
Thank you, Dave.
Additional property from the town. In September, we approved a request from the Churchill Family Trust to claim a 50-foot by 62-foot parcel of town land at 1 Forest Lane that sits beneath the garage structure on the property. The Churchill family is now seeking the board approval for a second claim deed request, this time comprising 2 small adjacent parcels totaling 0.12 acres. Proposed boundary line adjustment will encompass lands that now include a fenced dog yard and septic system on the property. The board is amenable to the request. The next step will be to authorize Kathleen Ramsey to work with council on drafting a claim deed for your approval. As a reminder, the proposed conveyance of town-owned land will trigger required public act notification under 24 VSA section 1061. And just a reminder, the way we did it on the last one is sure they're willing to again, the Churchill family covered all of the town's costs. The only thing that they did cover is Kathleen's staff.
Is this the health plan?
No, it's not.
I hope it's.
But I think it's right there.
Yeah,
Right there.
this is
Licenses.
650 feet away from the water tower. I had asked Dan for, to make sure there wasn't any interference with.
Can I ask a few other questions? Why did they do this all in one package last year?
They didn't realize until the surveyor went out there that their dog yard was on town land and that the septic system was on.
Where, well, I just looked at a picture on Google Earth and there's no dog fence there. So thinking that Google Earth is probably within the last couple of years,
Right.
They built this fence just recently. And if they knew that they had an issue with the town or with the survey, why would they build a dog fence and then ask the town to give them the land?
That was the same issue with the garage.
Well, that was 50 years ago. I gave them a pass. I mean, anybody, before you're gonna build anything, is gonna have a survey to see if you're gonna put it on. They took a huge hunk of land with the garage, and I don't even know, with the schematic where the sewer is.
I thought it was where the arrow was pointing as a gravel drive. That looks like a little bit like
It looks like
a
it
sewer
could be.
bed, but then it's labeled as a gravel drive, so.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know where that is. And,
Okay, from what I understand, that this is the chain link fence,
Mhm.
that the dog is right there.
yeah, it is there, and you can look on Google Maps and you can twist around. There's no fence in Google.
And then, this is my understanding,
For the record, the Google map on my house is at least 4 years old.
Okay, so either they've either built the fence in the last 4 years, or they've torn it down.
Right.
You know, so, I mean,
It could be, I mean, honestly, it could be older than that.
if, they've obviously known for a long time that they had issues with the land. And they put up a dog fence. And then ask for permission to have the land.
They can move the dog fence to the.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what they're looking for. It looks, what they didn't say is there's a dog fence. It looks like what I'm seeing is the whole dog fence. I'm not sure what is the land. Is that line, that 14025, the longitudinal line there, is that their town line or their property line, or
This right here.
is it, yeah, is that their property line? Well, not only is there dog fence there, but their front porch is down,
Very close, yeah.
So which line is it, the blue line or the pink line?
What happened after the surveyor came up with this proposal to use the red line, and Mr. Churchill met with planning and zoning, and David Wetmore planning and zoning said, well, that's great, but you also need some setbacks from the corner of the garage. So what we're proposing is to do the blue line, so that all the setbacks are met and they are in conformance with zoning for a boundary line adjustment.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, so it's the blue line and the longitude and latitudinal lines are the current property, and then the blue lines that are what the town has figured out to give them setbacks. So,
Can we ask the question, is this gonna be it? I mean, before we go through the process again,
Yeah.
is this gonna satisfy their needs? You know, should we be considering, I mean, I appreciate, David Whitmore going out and making the additional suggestion for the lines. I still think the edge of that dog fence is very close to,
There's no setback there.
Where's the dog fence? I'm sorry.
it's the chain link fence on the west side of the house there.
So
So that's just a little triangle, that's all, in the corner?
So,
Yeah, so
on
that's,
top is the garage? That's the garage. Yeah, you can actually.
So the pink line is the town
you
property?
can go down into their yard.
This is where the town property ends, right?
Okay, so they are already on our property.
so it's part of the house zone property.
The porch, the front porch,
Porch,
the asphalt
dog fence.
walk,
But I don't.
the concrete curb, we don't.
I've always wanted to do that.
We have an option to say.
Just do that.
We always have an option to say that.
No, my question is, if there's a document on our property,
I need it.
why can't
Right,
they?
$500 on land.
Instead of asking that for it.
Well, the problem is it's not just the dog.
Right, but we're
fence,
adding
it's also
$500
part of their
toward
porch.
again, to get out of.
Yeah, but right now, they're
And they can't
specifically
drive.
asking for the documents and, the
Well,
septic.
and it's not like we can use that.
No,
Sure.
I know, I just bring it up with one.
I just, the only
Mine's
thing
all
I
private,
got
I
when I
mean, I
looked
can't
at
go
this
on
was,
the town land.
you know, looking at where the drive goes, did it make sense, you know, how much more are we talking about to bring the point, this point over maybe a little more and,
Right here.
yeah. I'm just asking the question, is this going to be it? If we go, I mean, I granted they're paying the cost, and if they wanna go for it again and pay for the cost again, okay. But should we ask the question, is this it?
Well, it's.
This is it until the next one.
Well, at some point, I think we need to charge for staff time. It's one thing to have a mistake once, but for us to not, I don't know, they haven't got an existing policy for fees, but it makes you wonder. We did a lot of these, I would have a fee.
So this, where the little, just to where the blue line is there, where the word flush is,
Mhm.
by the 3 foot and the 2, that line that runs down, is that the road?
Yes.
That's
No,
a
no.
gravel. It's a gravel right there.
Where it says, yeah, is that the edge of, what is that line signifying, do you know? No.
The road, the driveway goes right in front of the house there,
Mhm.
and then it immediately turns into Forest Drive, right? So the town owns they have the longest driveway in town, and we, as a town, own it. Wow. So, they're the only house on the road.
But
No,
it's
there's
not-
another house,
Is there?
Potter's.
Where is it?
Oh, yeah, stuck in the woods there.
So
But that's
to-
accessible, that's accessible from down near the bottom of the road again. Down,
One thing that's up.
It's only accessible from Forest Lane.
yeah, I see it, got it. I just saw that.
And
No.
their garage also has.
That's what their garage is.
Is there a garage on there too?
Do they have an
No,
easement from the town of Middlebury from where
They
the
have
garage
okay.
With the businesses.
Is this how we
exactly.
No, we access the
Spring
perpendicular
side
road to the water tower. This
Okay,
goes off.
can I get us back on this?
High Street.
Brian wants to go home.
I have to go back still. And where are we at on this discussion? Is there any more questions?
Is everybody okay with this? I guess we'll find out.
I haven't had a motion yet.
Kathleen, are you comfortable with giving my outline?
I think that this was an agreement made a long time ago to give them an easement for their garage. We can debate if that was a good idea or not, but that was 60 years ago. And this is just clean it up, hopefully, and hopefully never guess, this is it.
You good with this? Are there setback requirements for fencing? Mm-hmm.
You know, if Dave's looked at it, he must be comfortable with it, but,
Okay. I mean, if we're doing this for conformance and we're still right at the edge of the dog fence.
So I'll
Maybe.
confirm the setbacks and make sure that there's enough.
but they'll bring up that again. So can I get a motion?
I move to authorize town manager Kathleen Ramsey to work with council to draft a quick claim deed for 0.12 acres of town-owned land located on One Forest Lane for board examination.
Basically, yes. I'll give it a second.
Second.
Just didn't want to have my name on it.
That goes to property tax reassessment, the land will go on the tax roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we
Good
have,
point.
Fred,
That's what you said.
Uh-huh.
hey Fred,
Hey, Fred?
Good evening. I'm a neighbor of the Churchills, and I bought the same 14-acre piece of town land that's water department land below the Battelle Trust land. It could be a great site for additional water storage reservoir. But aside from that, I think that on principle, it's awkward, to say the least, for someone to build something on town land and later ask for, can you give it to us? And $500 was pretty generous. I hope the town would do a better job of discouraging the principle of just expropriating land for adjoining property owner's use and then giving it away practically. You know, there's a gravel area behind the garage that they're still going to use that, you know, with the 2 feet 0 inches shown on your diagram here. This definitely benefits the saleability of the parcel. It's going to appreciate in value quite considerably when they do sell it. So I think just on principle, we ought to discourage expropriation and get fair value for the town. Nothing, no offense against the Churchills. Roger's my friend and Teresa's a neighbor, but I just think on principle it's pretty awkward for that. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
They can't sell it as is. They could never sell that house with having a septic system on the town. So that's.
Because it's, if somebody has encroached on the timeline and come back 2 years later or something with the, do the quick thing. You know, I don't think that's fair.
Is there any legal precedent on this, I mean, as far as if we didn't do anything to move them off from our land, or they would have a claim to that land?
It's water's rights for their.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Ask that question.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a boundary line adjustment, it's always a big deal with the fences.
Oh, sure.
Okay, if you
Farmers,
want me
where's
to
that
work
fence?
up a fair value for the land, I'm certainly happy to do that.
I kind of like the idea.
I'll go with that.
The current property is 0.44 acres, and this is an additional 0.12. We're adding a quarter to the lot.
Quarter off the margin.
That's substantial. Yeah, I think some kind of actual market value would be good.
Okay. There's three that's enough to carry for tonight. You care to rescind your motion? Or do you want to go for the motion?
Sure, I can send it until we have more
More
information from Kathleen. Okay.
All right, move on. Requesting town's consent for the merger between the Addison Partnership and the Smith Partnership, for the Addison Partnership being the surviving partnership. So that fast three times.
No.
Draw a diagram, please.
So Jess Peck, an asset manager with Evernorth, recently reached out to the town regarding the merger between us and housing. Jess with us?
Yes, it's with us.
Hey. You waited all night, Jess?
I have been here.
Oh, you got to see a fun meeting then.
Well, thanks for hearing us. So we are requesting a merger. We did one a few years ago, merging two partnerships with Jens and Addison, with Addison surviving, and we are looking to roll Smith partnership into that full partnership. And it's really just to financially extend the life of the properties. It helps us with economy of scale, you know, cutting surrounding two audits and two of this and two of that. You know, just helping them both function better together, rather than separately.
Any questions?
It doesn't change anything as far as like position builders in, properties that were budgeted affordable, staying affordable. So nothing is changing in any of that respect.
So primarily you're just simplifying accounting and auditing.
Correct.
Makes sense to me. Yeah, sure. Let me find it. Yeah, I clicked on something. 8, 9. I move to authorize town manager Kathleen Ramsey to work with the town council on drafting an amendment to the agreement between Addison Housing Limited Partnership and Smith Limited Housing Partnership, outlining the terms of the proposed merger for the board's consideration.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Jess.
Thank you.
Check warrants at the end.
Yes, it's me. I move to approve the total expenditures in the amount of $3,496,020.47, consisting of $3,378,648.43 for the accounts payable and $117,372.04 for payroll for the period of March 9, 2020 through March 22, 2020.
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Cool. There's a lot of money there.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So, board member concerns, Andy?
I am concernless.
It's a lot better than clueless.
I could be considered clueless, but, nice job tonight. Thanks, Brian, for doing all that work. Yeah, really
I
diffused.
have my fingers and my toes crossed that it goes smoothly. And I, with your guys' support, will be hounding V-Trans to make sure we get it off to a start. So,
Great.
I'm trying to keep Kathleen in the loop, but I know you've already buried her with other projects. This is one that I can do.
No, thanks. Nothing else.
Rod?
Yeah, I had a very great meeting with Karen Duguay and Alden Harwood from the farmers market last week. With Nan, his wife, and it was a great meeting. Alden had approached me a couple months ago. He wanted to explore the possibility of moving the farmers market somewhere in Middlebury, and we always question them, how come they don't? But he was not on the board when the decision was made for them not to come downtown. But right now they have the vendors have declined at the current place, and they hardly have anybody coming, so they're concerned. So we met with Karen Duguay, and by the way, BMP also is putting up a Thursday market for the summer, every Thursday from 3 to 7. So they got concerned, the farmers market people, that they thought we were competing with them. We said, no, we're not, but we want to bring vitality downtown, that's what we're doing it. So we invited them to have some of the vendors at this Thursday market to test it out to see how they like it. And if they like it, they're welcome to explore the possibility of having a Saturday market in Middlebury. So that's where the conversation, I just want to give you an update. They are excited, but I see something in the packet I haven't read today. I don't know what that's about, but they are very eager to be somewhere in the downtown.
Great. Me too.
Is the BMP, do they have a location, like, would it be a triangle park?
Okay. Yes, but
Good.
And that's for the first year, it's being funded by Table 21,
Oh,
$25,000. And after that, it
And
should be
there's
self-sustaining.
going to be some revenue too.
It should be self-sustaining because they're renting spaces. So it should be-
that's great.
It's got a great manager, so it's going to be big time, big.
Thanks very much.
Okay. But no, Karen's not managing. I said it's going to be big time. I'm the new manager.
Thank you.
It's going to be.
See, I believe it.
I do. Karen's all excited about it.
Karen solicited my wife.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah, she actually picked her out to go. She didn't manage it.
She asked me for her contact information. And that was,
not there.
yeah, I gave her contact. You know, she's excited about it.
Oh, good.
This is her first time since she was involved with schools. Well, the kids are growing up with the PTA, or she was president of PTA for a while, different things like that. She hasn't done anything for the community in a long time. She's very excited about it.
Awesome. Well, thank her for stepping up. I'm good service.
This happens.
No,
I was going to mention that the LCT is looking to put together a DEI committee with representation from a number of towns. I think it sounds like perhaps they're looking for ways to support maybe smaller towns that don't have the funding stream that we do in doing this work. So they are looking for people to nominate themselves by this Friday. Unfortunately, it's a quick turnaround, but we have paper copies here of the application, and I'm sure Kathleen has access to an electronic one. And I can email Esther since she's not here, in case she's interested, but anyone.
Are you interested? And this is a VLTC student?
It's VLCT, and it is a day meeting. It looks like a Monday. If anyone else is interested, please let me know. If not, I will consider it. Because I think it's important work, and I'm glad they're doing it. And that is my only concern.
The committee assignments, was that supposed to be done tonight?
You were going to mention committee assignment?
Yes, so, the list is in here. Let's plan on finalizing them at the next board meeting, okay? I had a couple of thoughts, I sent a note to Esther. Dan, and I just want to share them for you guys to think about, and certainly you guys should have some input. The MREM's work group, I'd like to look to fold that into the public health and safety. And the liaison to Kickstart program, I think at this point, we can probably drop that assignment. And if in the future we need somebody, we could do that again. We just assigned Dan Farhad to the Mosley 100, so that's already taken care of. So one of the big moves I asked Esther to consider is that we would move Esther to be the primary on public health and safety to relieve Dan of that primary responsibility. He could stay on as the alternate. He and Farhad are going to be, I think, work pretty hard on that, mostly 100. And then moving Andy to infrastructure. So that's a
Great place to be to figure out what's going on.
well, that's just my thoughts. I'll let you guys think about it, talk about it over the next couple of weeks. Need to look at your committee members and get in touch with them. If Esther is comfortable with doing that, I think I would have support of the board. She already talked to Dan about giving up that primary, and he's okay with that. So if she's comfortable with that, then I'll ask her to start verifying if the other members are still interested in serving and stuff. So somebody needs to be doing that. You don't have need for a executive session, Kathleen? All right.
Motion to adjourn.
So I will solicit a motion. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Hey, this time I have to say aye.
That's right.
So Kathleen, on the police committee, there, downtown improvement district recognition, wasn't that Nick? Did you change my name in there? You did, because